Well, this is the 1st of March, 2025, and I have a missive. Two things I want to say. This is the first one. Now, Peter Paget is a former asset of the British government. He was a spy, and he also wrote and has subsequently re-released The Welsh Triangle and a number of other books. And the Welsh Triangle was banned by the MOD. It was one of these things where it was banned, so the MOD bought them all up so nobody else could buy them. And that was about the very sensitive situation in Wales, otherwise known as the Welsh Triangle. And that was a very long time ago, in the 1980s, actually 70s, actually. Anyway, Peter was also put in charge of the Warminster Thing. And that was way back in the 1960s when Warminster, Longleat and the surrounding areas were having a hell of a lot of UFO activity. And of course, we subsequently know there are deep tunnels down there. Witnesses have been down there in the tunnels with Alpha Draco running about the place as if they own it. And obviously, as I've mentioned before, when I asked Nick Pope when he was in the Ministry of Defence, all this thing about UFOs, and he said that, well, UFOs are of no defence significance, and typical to Nick Pope's linguistic skills, if you look at it from, everything's going fine, no defence significance means, well, obviously they're irrelevant, they're not really of any concern, so they have no defence significance. However, we now know that because they have been dealing with a large number of ETs, it's of no defence significance because they're working with them and they're in the bases and all the rest of it around them. So this whole hullabaloo about UAPs and the CIA. The CIA are doing the job. They're doing what they do. Some of the earliest UFO books were written by assets of the DVD, which is the secret German intelligence, which very few people know about or have spoken about. One was Michael Shrimpton, and the other was the late Lisa Williams, who was on Basis 1. So, they were building their flying saucers, and then we have the whole SSP thing. And obviously, if you're using the physics, anytime they're quoting Einstein, they are quoting rubbish physics. But you can't say that. Anyway, the point is, Peter Paget has got a history of being involved with direct contact with ETs, such as down at RAF St. Morgan, when they were having problems with their computer systems, which connected with the base up at Machrihanish. And those twin bases were allied and connected together. The master base was down in Cornwall at St. Morgan. And of course, there was a big US presence there. And they, when they have their presence on bases, they have their presence, and that's their place. Anybody comes in from outside, they close all the books, put the drawers in, and say, hello, thank you. Yes, the coffee maker is working. Thank you very much. Could you please leave now? All very polite, but that's the way things are. So, in the context of Professor Valentina Zarkova's work, Professor Valentina Zarkova has led a team of mathematicians and cosmologists and people who calculate lots of things and test them and validate them, and her data was verified, published on Nature magazine in 2015. It's now 2025. I did a masterclass with her explaining the solar physics and the solar magnetic field issues, of which there are two magnetic fields, and they're coming towards us as they do, but they're going out of phase, which means there's destructive interference between those magnetic fields as they hit our magnetic field. And everybody knows, who knows anything, that our magnetic field is, the north and south poles are moving substantially off their north and south positions. This is causing very serious holes and a massive degradation in protection from the solar radiations of all different types, which means there's a hell of a lot more happening on the Earth that they don't want to tell you about, because they want to push a Fabian agenda, which is the carbon zero thing, so that by 2030 you'll have only electricity, you won't be able to have anything else, and that's the one thing you're going to lose when the shit hits the fan on this. So Professor Valentina Zarkova has given a number of updates to her data on YouTube and other sources, and she will be giving a most recent update to bases on a live presentation on the 25th of March, and that will only be available on Bases TV on Facebook for free. So if you go to the Bases TV Facebook page on the 25th from about 1 o'clock, you'll be able to see Valentina Zarkova present, and another doctor that afternoon will be presenting stuff on nanobots injected into human beings, which is all part of the stuff which we were investigating way back in 1994, because Barry King's father and a few other people found out the Germans were making strange-looking humans. All that technology in World War II was brought here. So they'd be making aliens, programmed life forms, and the story goes that we've got a secret space program and all that stuff. So today, 1st of March, Peter Paget has sent a little bit of an email. So I'm going to read the email and you can take it as read. Okay, heads up. There are a number of significant situations you all need to be aware of. This is a chicane point for the human race. You might say that the 7 planets in the sky is almost a sign, as cosmic rhythms often are reflected in such alignments. This is a fact. And lots of other people have been talking about it, including Syed Noah, who was doing a whole lot of stuff on that here at the Bases studio. And he was mentioning this about the Egyptians, talking about the whole crust of the earth shifting, and it's all encoded in the Egyptian data in plain sight. And he was explaining that. He's now left the UK, and his data, his information is paused at this very critical time. Okay, moving on with Peter Paget's email. For example, the increased solar wind particles are heating the magma in the Earth's crust, and volcanic activity is on the increase. Professor Valentina Zarkova is talking about this, and she's warning about this, and this is part of the natural rhythms of the solar system when it does these sorts of things. Our little problem is that we're using electricity, and we're here at the moment when this is happening. So this is what's on the cards. A super eruption is very likely within 2 years, causing harvests to fail due to stratospheric dust albedo effects. That's already happened. The volcano in Tonga has already done this in the southern hemisphere, and it has affected a 5% reduction in sunlight hitting the southern hemisphere, which has already affected bee populations and harvests. So this is happening. It's going to be, that's what's going on. He's also saying in this email, earthquakes are also increasing, which is all part of the physics, as predicted and warned by Professor Valentina Zarkova and Suspicious Observer and a number of other people who are looking into this. Meanwhile, the geopolitical situation has changed. We've all seen the fiasco going on in Europe, where a whole lot of headless chickens are running around. And I won't say much more than that. I have a very low opinion of all these parasites. The geopolitical situation has changed. World War III has been avoided by Trump, but the pressure on Europe to rearm and produce even more nuclear weapons, which everybody knows are useless because somebody else doesn't want you to use them, as happened at the Rendlesham Forest UFO events, and this is partly included in this email. So, but the pressure on Europe to rearm and produce even more nuclear warheads, as voiced in Germany today, is a pressure on certain elements to contain the human race, the kindergarten kids, from further mischief. That is what happened at Rendlesham Forest when the nuclear weapons in the bunkers were all disarmed. Okay? So Peter, who has experience with dealing with these other intelligences, is telling you in this email They're not going to have this. Okay? So the kindergarten, i.e. the brainless politicians we fraudulently elect, are probably going to have to go and see the headmaster. And they might have to get a right caning, if you want to use old parlance from old schools. And since we're dealing with old school here, thus, certain things may occur that look like random events, but in fact are not random events. Okay, politically, coming straight to the British political situation, the Westminster bubble, the Hill and the EU elite are blissfully unaware of what lies ahead. It will all be a big surprise. It may be a big surprise to them, but those who have been watching and paying attention will just have to sit back and watch the party. Some cosmologists have muttered, but even they are guessing. And my interruption, there's a bit more, there's a third page. Let's get on with this. The reality is that much of the UAP, so-called, activity is working in their own domain at a much deeper level than you could be aware of, and that control is now becoming proactive and live. Now again, this is Peter Paget. He's had to deal with the ET situation way back in the 60s at Warminster and the RAF St. Morgan situation when ETs were affecting the computers because they didn't like being seen and detected by the US and British technology listening in the oceans. So they paid them a visit and Peter had to sort of have a little bit of a chat. Okay, and that's all on basis. The Peter Paget thing, I think, is basis 48. I don't know. Could be basis 50, whatever, I don't know. It's the Warminster thing, and you can see that at basistv.com because YouTube took the whole lot down way back in 2021. And the hell with YouTube. Right, you see, right, so just continue on here. I'll just reread that. The reality is that much of the UAP so-called activity is working in their own domain at a much deeper level than you could be aware of. And that control is now becoming proactive and live. You see through a glass darkly. The forces of nature and of the cosmos remain hidden, visible only to the initiated, and that there are not many of those around currently, I assure you. Planet of the Apes, or the primates, is not given much acknowledgement on the cosmic IQ scale. Pretty dumb. Just sheep or bacteria in the Petri dish. And a long time ago, the late John Lear and Simon Parkes, way back in 2011, said they're just going to clean out the Petri dish. So this is another reference in 2025 to the Petri dish. And so I'll read that again. Planet of the Apes, or the primates, is not given much acknowledgement on the cosmic IQ scale. Pretty dumb. Just sheep or bacteria in the Petri dish. Disposable, even, or certainly needing management. So wake up, look around, clear the vision of the illusions, and wise up to the living in interesting times. And he quotes that, finishing off with the term, a Chinese proverb. So that's it. This basis update. Saturday, March the 1st. And clear warning with lots of coded messages there if you are able to read between the lines. And that's it from Miles for the Basis Project. Have a nice day.